Welcome to Reclaiming the Light Within. This space is for those healing from being silent for way too long and learning how to live whole again. Hi, guys, it's Dr. Grace, not a doctor of medicine, but a doctor of education. There was a time in my own life where I learned how to dim my light, not because I wanted to, but because it felt like the only way to survive. Maybe you know that feeling. Sit with it for a moment. Maybe you know that feeling, not because you were weak, but because you were carrying more than anyone ever knew. This space is for anyone who has been surviving in silence, for those who learned how to be strong, quiet, and composed while something inside of them was slowly unraveling. Healing taught me something I didn't expect. It taught me that wholeness does not just happen, and it doesn't arise from small superficial adjustments. It emerges from a deep transformative journey of self-discovery and growth, where each step leads to a more complete, authentic existence or a more authentic you. It begins with unraveling the truth and then working to uncover the light you were never meant to hide. If you ever felt like this, or if you ever felt like you had to shrink in order to stay safe, if you ever wondered whether your voice still matters, or if you're standing at the edge of healing, but don't quite know how to step forward, that you are in the right place. You are in the right space. This is reclaiming the light within. And this is where the unraveling begins. Let me share a Bible story with you. There's a touching story in the Bible that has stayed with me because it reflects deeply human experiences that maybe on some level we can all relate to. Her name was Agar. You can read all about her in Genesis around chapter 16. Agar was an Egyptian servant to Abraham and Sarah, who courageously accepted or assumed the role of being a surrogate mother. This was a common practice in those ancient times, where she gave birth to Abraham's first son, who was later called Ishmael when he was born. This happened in a time when Sarah faced the challenge of being barren, right? She was unable to have a child of her own, or so she thought. Read the full story for the full explanation of that. Hagar agrees with Sarah to sleep with her husband, Abraham, and she conceives. And her status now changed, which leads to conflict with Sarah, who starts to treat her harshly, causing Agar to flee into the wilderness alone and pregnant. This is the section to relate, and where Agar's strength and resilience are evidence in her story as her story continues. Why I say that? Why? Because she was unseen, she was unheard, she was placed in the circumstances she did not choose, right? I understand she agreed to the situation created. She agreed to be the surrogate, but I'm not sure she had a choice back in those times, right? Remember, she was the servant. But nevertheless, Agar survived in the household while pregnant because she remained silent until it became too unbearable, right? So she ran. She ran into the wilderness. And this is the part. It was there, not in her certainty, but in her uncertainty. Not in her safety, but in her unsafety, that God met Agar. And when he met her, he didn't shame her. He didn't rush her. He didn't ask her to explain herself. He simply saw her. This story demonstrated God's faithfulness in providing for Agar and her unborn son Ishmael. not just for that moment, but for generations. Because this wasn't just about Agar. So even though they were considered outcasts, he still provided for them. Agar named God the God who sees her, the God who sees her. How fitting. So many of us have been Agar in our own way, in some way or form, right? We're surviving where you may have been surviving quietly, carrying what was never yours, hiding pieces of yourself just to make it through. And yet, the same God who saw Agar in the wilderness, guess what? This is the good news part. It's the same God who sees you right where you are. Before you receive the healing, before you even received your answers to your prayers, and before you even receive courage, he sees you. So when you know you are seen by God, you stop shrinking. You stop apologizing for your existence. You stop hiding the light you buried just to survive. Healing doesn't start with becoming visible to the world. It's not about that. Healing starts with realizing you were never invisible to God. That's the good news. So maybe this week, guys, the impact doesn't have to be something you do loudly, right? Maybe the impact is going to be something you simply allow. Allow yourself to be seen. Allow yourself to be seen by God and by yourself. And that's where transformation begins. That's where your light is going to return. That's where wholeness is born. You don't have to rush this journey, this process. Just stay. Think about, reflect on the words, reflect on where you are, and let the light meet you where you are. And I thank you for joining me. If any of this, if any of what I said, if any of this episode resonated with you, I invite you to return weekly. New reflections are going to be shared weekly on the YouTube channel. You do not have to walk this journey alone. We could do it together. And before you go, I want you to think this week on this question and write your thoughts down on a piece of paper, in a journal, whatever you have. Just write this question, write your response to this question down. What am I still carrying that no longer belongs to me? And I'll see you the next time. Subscribe to this journey if it speaks to you. Share this episode with someone who needs encouragement. Leave a word in the comment that reflects what you are learning. And I'll see you next time. Stay well, stay blessed.